The alarm shrieked through the diplomatic ship Valiant. Red lights flashed across every corridor and cabin. Captain Linda Hayes gripped the armrests of her command chair as the ship rocked from another weapon's impact. On the main view screen, 6 Krelvan warships closed in like hungry wolves circling wounded prey. Commander Jake Morrison stood at his security station, his fingers dancing across the tactical display. His calm voice cut through the chaos on the bridge. He had seen worse situations during his 12 years as a Navy SEAL. Much worse. The Krelvan had ambushed them in the Meridian Expanse, a region of space where borders blurred and rules meant nothing. The diplomatic convoy they were escorting carried coalition ambassadors heading to peace talks. Now those ships scattered in every direction, running for their lives. Jake studied the enemy formation. The Krelvan flew in tight groups, firing in coordinated volleys. It was textbook military doctrine, probably 500 years old. Predictable, exploitable. Captain Hayes turned to him. Her face was pale, but her voice stayed steady. She was former Air Force, a pilot who had transitioned to diplomatic service. She knew how to keep her cool under fire. "Morrison, can we fight our way out?" she asked. Jake shook his head. "Not with the civilian ships. They have no weapons and minimal shields. The Krelvan will tear them apart, then what do we do?" He looked at the tactical map again. There was an old coalition outpost 3 kilometers away, built during the expansion era and mostly abandoned now. Its systems were offline, but the structure was solid. Heavy titanium walls meant for defense against pirates and raiders. "Someone needs to draw their attention," Jake said quietly. "Buy time for the convoy to jump to faster than light speed." Linda understood immediately. Her eyes widened. "Morrison, no. I cannot order you to do that. You are not ordering me, Captain. I am volunteering." Before she could argue, Jake activated the shipwide communication system. "Lieutenant Commander Blake, report to the bridge. All security teams prepare for emergency deployment." Aaron Blake arrived within 30 seconds. He was 29 years old, a former Marine sniper with sharp eyes and quick reflexes. He had served with Jake for 3 years now. They trusted each other with their lives. Aaron looked at the tactical display and immediately understood the plan. His jaw tightened, but he nodded once. "How long do you need?" 6 hours minimum, Jake replied. "That gives the convoy time to get clear and jump to safety." "Can you hold for 6 hours?" Jake smiled, though his eyes remained hard. "I have held against worse odds with less equipment. The outpost has defensive positions and some old weapons caches. I can make it work." Captain Hayes stood up from her chair. "Commander Morrison, I cannot allow this. There has to be another way." "There is not, Captain," Jake said gently. "You know it, and I know it. This is what I trained for. What I signed up for." The ship shuddered again as more weapons fire struck the shields. Warning lights flashed across every console. They were running out of time. Aaron Blake stepped forward. "I am going with you." "Negative," Jake said firmly. "You are staying with the Valiant. The captain will need you to organize the convoy defense once they regroup." "That is an order, Lieutenant Commander." Aaron wanted to argue. Jake could see it in his eyes. But they were military men and orders were orders. Aaron saluted. "Good hunting, Reaper." The call sign made Jake smile for real this time. It had been years since anyone used it. He had earned that name during a hostage rescue operation on Earth. 26 terrorists, 1 SEAL, 26 bodies and 0 hostages harmed. His team had started calling him Reaper after that night. Jake grabbed his combat gear from the security locker and headed to the shuttle bay. Captain Hayes followed him, her footsteps quick on the metal deck. "Morrison," she called out. "Jake." He stopped and turned. Her eyes were wet, but no tears fell. "We will come back for you," she said. "I promise you that. I know you will, Captain. Just make sure those civilians get home safely. That is what matters." 20 minutes later, Jake guided the small shuttle toward the abandoned outpost. The Krelvan ships noticed immediately. 3 of them broke formation and followed him. Perfect. He landed the shuttle in the outpost docking bay and ran through the dark corridors with his rifle ready. Emergency lighting flickered on as his boots echoed through empty halls. The outpost had been built to hold a garrison of 50 soldiers. Now it held only 1. Jake found the weapons storage and smiled. The coalition might be peaceful, but they were not stupid. Enough firepower for a small war sat in sealed crates. Rifles, grenades, ammunition, explosives. He started setting up defensive positions at key choke points throughout the station. The first Krelvan boarding party arrived 40 minutes later. They cut through the external airlock with plasma torches and poured into the outpost. 20 soldiers in heavy armor, carrying energy weapons that could punch through steel. Jake waited in the shadows of the main corridor. He had rigged the entrance with motion sensors and explosive charges. When the Krelvin squad reached the halfway point, he triggered the detonation. The explosion tore through the corridor. 7 Krelvin died instantly. The others scattered, seeking cover. Jake opened fire from his elevated position. Short, controlled bursts, just like training. Each bullet found its target. The Krelvin had superior numbers and technology, but they fought like soldiers in a parade ground. They advanced in formation, called out positions in loud voices, and expected their enemies to fight the same way. Jake had trained for asymmetric warfare his entire career. He hit them from unexpected angles. He used the environment. He made every shot count. By the time the first assault ended, 15 Krelvin lay dead. 5 had retreated back to their ship. Jake had used 1 clip of ammunition and 2 grenades. He moved to a new position before they could pinpoint his location. This was going to be a long 6 hours. The second assault came with 40 soldiers. Jake had prepared for that too. He had rigged the ventilation system with makeshift explosive devices. When the Krelvin entered the central chamber, he brought down half the ceiling on them. More died. The survivors fought blindly through dust and debris. Jake picked them off methodically. Hours blurred together. More Krelvin came. More died. Jake kept moving, kept fighting. His body ran on muscle memory and adrenaline. He had trained for this. The human body could endure incredible stress when properly conditioned and motivated. Finally, his ammunition ran low. He had held them for 6 hours and 17 minutes. The convoy was safe now. They had to be. Captain Hayes would have gotten them clear. Jake made his last stand in the command center. He had 1 clip left and 3 grenades. 60 Krelvin soldiers surrounded the position. Their commander broadcast a message through loudspeakers. Human soldier, surrender now. You have fought well, but you cannot win. We will treat you with honor as a prisoner of war. Jake considered his options. He could trigger the final explosive charges and take as many of them with him as possible. Or he could surrender and live to fight another day. His team would come for him. He knew they would. He set down his rifle and stepped out with his hands raised. The Krelvin soldiers rushed forward and slammed him to the ground. Heavy boots pressed against his back. Metal restraints locked around his wrists. As they dragged him toward their ship, the Krelvin commander approached. He was tall, over 7 feet, with gray-scaled skin and cold yellow eyes. He stared at Jake with a mixture of respect and confusion. You killed 47 of my warriors, the commander said. 1 human against an army. What is your name, soldier? Jake lifted his head and met the alien's gaze. Commander Jake Morrison, United Earth Navy SEALs. Service number 7738294. The Krelvin pulled out a scanning device and waved it over Jake. The device beeped and displayed information. The commander read it and his eyes widened slightly. Your military designation says here your call sign is Reaper, he said slowly. That is correct. The commander laughed. A ceremonial title, no doubt. We shall see how long this Reaper lasts under proper interrogation. Take him to the flagship. General Corthon will want to meet this curious human. As the Krelvin soldiers dragged Jake onto their transport ship, he allowed himself a small smile. They thought Reaper was just a title. They had no idea what that name truly meant. They had no idea what they had just captured. The game had only just begun. The Krelvin flagship Dominion's fist drifted through space like a predator resting between hunts. Inside its interrogation wing, bright lights burned down on a metal chair bolted to the floor. Jake Morrison sat in that chair, his wrists locked in electromagnetic restraints. Commander Vexthor circled him slowly. The Krelvin officer was tall and muscular, with dark gray scales that caught the harsh light. His yellow eyes studied Jake like a scientist examining an interesting specimen. You have been our guest for 2 days now, human, Vexthor said in accented but clear English. The translation device in his throat made his voice sound mechanical. Yet you have told us nothing beyond your name and numbers. This disappoints me, Jake said nothing. He kept his breathing steady and his face neutral. SEER training had prepared him for this. Survival, evasion, resistance, escape. Every special operations soldier went through it. They taught you how to endure interrogation, how to protect classified information, how to stay sane when your body wanted to break. Vexthor leaned closer. We know you are military. We know you serve the Human Defense Forces. What we want to understand is why you fought so hard. Why one soldier would sacrifice himself for a ship full of diplomats and civilians. This makes no tactical sense, Jake met his eyes. Commander Jake Morrison, service number 7738294. United Earth Navy. Vexthor struck him across the face. The blow was harder than a human punch. Jake tasted copper and felt warm blood in his mouth. He spat it out and looked back at the Krelvin with the same calm expression. The Krelvin officer stepped back, frustrated. His species valued honor and respect in combat. When a warrior was beaten, they surrendered with dignity. They answered questions from fellow warriors. They did not sit silent and bleeding with that infuriating calm in their eyes. Your coalition friends have no concept of true warfare, Vexthor continued. They fly ships with minimal weapons. They train soldiers for ceremony, not combat. Yet you fought like a demon. 47 of my warriors dead. How? Jake remained silent. Vexthor activated a control panel. The temperature in the room dropped rapidly. Within minutes, Jake could see his breath. His wet uniform began to freeze against his skin. The cold bit through to his bones. This was a standard technique. Extreme temperatures combined with sleep deprivation and isolation. It broke most prisoners within 72 hours. Jake had endured worse during training exercises in Alaska. He forced his mind elsewhere to warm beaches and summer days. Mental compartmentalization, another skill they taught at Sear School. Hours passed. Vexthor asked questions. Jake gave nothing but his name and service number. The interrogator tried different approaches. Threats, promises, bargains. Nothing worked. On the third day, General Corthon himself came to observe. He was older than Vexthor, with silver scales that marked his age and status. Deep scars crossed his arms and chest. Battle honors. He stood in the observation room behind one-way glass and watched the interrogation with growing interest. Explain to me how this is possible, he said to his intelligence officer. Our psychological profiles suggest humans are social creatures who value communication. They break easily under isolation and pain, yet this one sits there like stone. The intelligence officer shifted nervously. General, I believe our information about humans may be incomplete. The coalition species we have interrogated before had no resistance training. This human clearly has specialized preparation. Corthon studied Jake through the glass. The human was obviously exhausted. His face showed bruises and dried blood, but his eyes remained alert and focused. There was no fear there, only patience. Tell me about this call sign, Corthon ordered. Reaper, what does it mean? The intelligence officer pulled up files on a data pad. According to our translation database, a Reaper is one who harvests or gathers. In human mythology, the Grim Reaper is a personification of death. It is likely a ceremonial title given to security officers. Corthon was not convinced. Humans do not strike me as a species that gives ceremonial titles to simple security guards. Send a message to our intelligence network. I want everything they have on human military structure and training. In the interrogation room, Vexthor tried a new tactic. He began talking instead of asking questions. He described the Krelvin military philosophy, the honor in combat, the glory of dying in battle. He spoke of the Empire's conquests and its destiny to rule the galaxy. Jake listened carefully. Every word was intelligence. He learned about Krelvin tactics, their command structure, their beliefs. He filed it all away in his memory for when his team came to rescue him. Because they would come. He had absolute faith in that. You know what interests me most about your species, Vexthor said, stopping in front of Jake. You joined the coalition seeking their protection. Your files indicate humans fought among yourselves for centuries. Wars, genocides, terrible destruction. Then you met the galactic community and suddenly you wanted peace. You wanted to be safe. He leaned down until his face was inches from Jake's. Yet here you are, trained to kill with devastating efficiency. How do you reconcile this contradiction? How can a species claim to seek peace while creating warriors like you? For the first time in 3 days, Jake spoke beyond his standard response. His voice was hoarse but steady. We want peace, he said, but we prepare for war. There is no contradiction. Peace is not the absence of capability. It is the choice not to use that capability unless necessary. Vexthor straightened, surprised that the human had finally spoken. And your call sign? This Reaper title? What does it really mean? Jake met his eyes. It means I am very good at my job, which is protecting those who cannot protect themselves. By any means necessary, the interrogation continued for days. Vexthor used every technique in the Krelvin manual. Physical discomfort, psychological pressure, isolation, sensory deprivation. Jake endured it all with the same quiet resilience. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, Captain Linda Hayes stood before the Coalition High Council. The council chamber was vast and beautiful, with representatives from 47 different species gathered in a circular arrangement. At the center, Ambassador Solarin from the Velascan delegation led the proceedings. The Velascans were elegant beings with pale blue skin and large dark eyes. They communicated telepathically among themselves, but used verbal speech with other species out of politeness. Solarin was known as a passionate advocate for peace. "Captain Hayes," Solarin said gently, "we understand your concern for Commander Morrison, but a military rescue operation would be an act of war. The Krelvan Empire would see it as an escalation. We would be forced to respond with force." "With respect, Ambassador," Linda replied, "they have already committed an act of war by attacking a diplomatic convoy and capturing one of my officers. They claim it was a response to coalition ships entering their space," another council member said. "A misunderstanding that can be resolved through negotiation." Lieutenant Commander Aaron Blake stepped forward. He had been standing behind Linda, but he could no longer stay silent. "Negotiation? They are torturing him. Every day we wait is another day Commander Morrison suffers." Solarin looked at him with sympathy. "We do not condone torture, Lieutenant Commander, but we must consider the greater good. A rescue attempt could trigger a war that would cost millions of lives across dozens of worlds." Aaron's hands clenched into fists. "Then what do you suggest we do? Leave him there to die?" "We continue diplomatic efforts," Solarin said firmly. "We offer concessions to the Krelvan in exchange for Commander Morrison's release. It may take time, but it is the path that preserves peace." Linda Hayes felt sick. She understood the political reality. The coalition had maintained peace for over 300 years by avoiding military confrontation. They would sacrifice one man to preserve that peace. It was logical. It was practical. It was also wrong. She looked at Aaron and saw the same determination in his eyes. They were going to get Jake back, with or without the Council's permission. Back on the Krelvan flagship, General Corthon received the intelligence report he had requested. He read it in his private quarters, his expression growing darker with each page. The report detailed human military history. Centuries of warfare had refined their tactics to brutal efficiency. They had developed psychological conditioning programs that produced soldiers capable of functioning through extreme stress. Their special operations forces underwent training so intense that only a small percentage completed it. Navy SEALs. The report highlighted this particular unit. Sea, air, and land forces, elite warriors trained in every form of combat. The report included statistics, success rates, mission records. Corthon felt something cold settle in his stomach. They had not captured a simple security officer. They had captured one of humanity's apex predators, a soldier whose entire existence was dedicated to one purpose: delivering death to his enemies. He activated his communication console. "Vexthor, cease the interrogation immediately. Transfer the prisoner to maximum security containment. I want guards on him at all times." Vexthor appeared on screen, confused. "General, I believe I am making progress. The human has started to speak. He is not breaking, you fool. He is gathering intelligence from you. Every question you ask, every piece of information you reveal, he is filing it away. We have not captured a prisoner." The stealth ship Shadowrunner drifted through the nebula like a ghost. Its hull absorbed sensor waves instead of reflecting them. To the Krelvan detection systems, it was just another piece of space debris floating through the particle clouds. Lieutenant Commander Aaron Blake stood in the cargo hold, checking his gear one final time. Around him, 9 other human security officers did the same. They moved with practiced efficiency, their faces painted with dark camouflage, their weapons loaded and ready. 3 coalition soldiers stood awkwardly to the side. They wore lightweight armor designed for non-lethal suppression. Their weapons fired stun charges, not bullets. They looked very young and very nervous. Aaron walked over to them. His voice was quiet but firm. "Listen carefully. Once we are inside that ship, stay behind us. Do exactly what I tell you. Do not hesitate. Do not think. Just follow orders. Understood?" The coalition soldiers nodded. One of them, a Velascan named Kiro, spoke up. "Lieutenant Commander, will we really need to use lethal force? Perhaps we can stun the guards instead." Aaron's expression was hard. "We are going into a hostile warship to extract a prisoner from maximum security. The Krelvin will kill us if they get the chance. We will do what is necessary to survive and complete the mission. If that bothers you, stay on this ship." Kiro swallowed hard but shook his head. "I volunteered for this mission. I will see it through." "Good," Aaron said. "Then check your equipment and prepare to move." Captain Linda Hayes watched from the bridge through a video feed. She had wanted to lead the rescue herself, but Aaron had talked her out of it. "If this goes wrong," he had said, "the Valiant will need you. Jake would want you to protect the ship and crew." She hated it, but he was right. Now all she could do was watch and pray. The Shadowrunner's pilot, a woman named Kate Riley, spoke over the intercom. "We are in position. The Krelvin flagship is 2,000 meters ahead. I'm reading minimal patrols. They are not expecting an attack." Aaron activated his helmet radio. "All teams, final weapons check. We go in 3 minutes." Inside the Dominion's fist, Jake sat in a new cell. Maximum security meant a small room with reinforced walls and constant surveillance. 2 guards stood outside at all times. They changed shifts every 4 hours like clockwork. Jake had been counting. 6 days of captivity, 144 hours. He knew exactly how many guards were stationed on this section of the ship. He knew their patrol routes and timing. He knew which ventilation shafts were large enough for a human to crawl through. He knew the location of the armory was 3 decks above him. He had been patient. But patience had limits. The meal tray they had given him was made of thin metal. Over the past 2 days, Jake had worked it back and forth until a piece broke off. He spent hours sharpening the edge against the floor when the cameras could not see. Now he had a crude knife hidden in his boot. The guards would change shift in 10 minutes. That was when he would make his move. He stood up and stretched, keeping his movements casual. He walked to the small toilet in the corner of the cell. The camera could not see that angle. He retrieved the sharpened metal and tucked it into his sleeve. 8 minutes, Aaron and his team attached themselves to the Krelvin hull using magnetic grips. They moved silently across the metal surface toward a maintenance hatch. One of the human specialists, a tech officer named Gary Lang, worked on the access panel with practiced skill. The hatch opened with barely a sound. They slipped inside one by one, entering a dark maintenance corridor. Emergency lights cast everything in dim red. Aaron pulled out a data pad showing the ship's layout. Intelligence had provided them with stolen Krelvin blueprints. "Maximum security detention is 6 decks down," he whispered. "We move fast and quiet. Suppressed weapons only until we reach Jake. Then we fight our way to the hangar bay." They moved through the ship like shadows. When they encountered a Krelvin technician, Gary grabbed him from behind and applied a sleeper hold. The alien went limp without making a sound. They tied him up and kept moving. 2 more Krelvin appeared in a corridor ahead. Aaron made a hand signal. 2 of his team raised their rifles. The suppressed shots were no louder than a cough. Both Krelvin dropped instantly. Kiro stared at the bodies, his face pale. He had never seen anyone killed before. Aaron grabbed his shoulder. "Stay focused. Keep moving." In his cell, Jake heard footsteps approaching. Shift change, right on schedule. He positioned himself by the door, the makeshift knife ready in his hand. The door opened. A Krelvin guard stepped inside to place a meal tray on the floor. Jake moved like lightning. He drove the sharpened metal into the guard's throat, angling up under the jaw where the armor had a gap. The guard made a gurgling sound and collapsed. The second guard was still in the hallway. He saw his partner fall and reached for his weapon. Jake was faster. He grabbed the first guard's energy rifle and fired. The shot burned through the second guard's chest before he could sound the alarm. Jake stripped the armor from one of the dead guards and put it on. It was too big, designed for the larger Krelvin frame, but it was better than nothing. He took both weapons and stepped into the corridor. Alarms would sound soon when the guards failed to check in. He needed to move fast. The hangar bay was his best chance for escape. He started running. Aaron's team reached the detention level. They came around a corner and nearly ran into Jake coming from the opposite direction. For a split second, everyone froze in surprise. Then Aaron grinned. "About time you showed up." Jake smiled back, wincing at his split lip. "I was just leaving." "Thanks for the invitation." Aaron tossed him a proper rifle and a tactical vest. "Thought you might need these. Ready to go home?" "Absolutely. But first we need to send a message." "What kind of message?" "The kind that makes them think twice before capturing another human." "Armory is 3 decks up. We destroy it on our way out." Aaron nodded. "I like the way you think." The alarm started blaring. Red lights flashed throughout the ship. Automated announcements echoed through the corridors in the Krelvan language. Jake understood enough to know they were alerting all security forces to converge on the detention level. "Time to move," Jake said. "Stay tight. Watch your corners. These corridors will funnel them toward us. We use that." They ran through the ship in a tactical formation. Jake and Aaron took point, with the other humans covering the flanks and rear. The Coalition soldiers stayed in the middle trying to keep up. The first Krelvan security team appeared at the end of a corridor. 8 soldiers in full combat armor. They saw the humans and opened fire with energy weapons. The air crackled with blue plasma bolts. Aaron pulled the team into a side corridor. Jake grabbed a grenade from his vest and tossed it around the corner. The explosion shook the walls. When the smoke cleared, 6 Krelvan were down. The other 2 retreated. They reached the armory level. Gary went to work on the security door while the others set up defensive positions. More Krelvan were coming. Jake could hear their boots thundering through distant corridors. The door opened. Inside, rows of weapons and ammunition filled metal racks. Jake and Aaron grabbed several explosive charges and started setting them throughout the room. "Contact," someone shouted. A wave of Krelvan soldiers poured into the corridor from both directions. The humans opened fire, their rifles creating a storm of bullets. The Krelvan fell in groups, but more kept coming. "Charges set," Jake yelled. 30 seconds. "Fall back to the hangar." They fought their way back down the corridor. One of the human soldiers took a plasma hit to the shoulder and went down. 2 others grabbed him and dragged him along. Kiro, the Velascan, surprised everyone by providing covering fire with his stun weapon. It would not kill the Krelvan, but it slowed them down. The armory exploded behind them. The shockwave knocked everyone off their feet. Fire and debris filled the corridor. Emergency bulkheads started closing to contain the damage. "Go, go, go," Aaron shouted. They reached the hangar bay to find it swarming with Krelvan. At least 40 soldiers stood between them and the stolen shuttle they planned to use for escape. More were taking positions behind crates and equipment. Jake and Aaron exchanged a look. This was going to be ugly. "Set up a perimeter," Jake ordered. "Overlapping fields of fire. Make every shot count. Gary, get that shuttle prepped for launch. Everyone else prepare for contact." The humans took positions behind maintenance equipment and structural supports. They had limited ammunition and no reinforcements. The Krelvan had superior numbers and were fighting on their home ground. But the humans had something the Krelvan did not. Years of training, decades of combined combat experience, the instinct and coordination that came from operating as a team in the worst situations imaginable. The Krelvan commander ordered the attack. His soldiers charged forward in a coordinated assault, just like their training manuals taught them. Jake's team opened fire. They did not waste ammunition on spray and pray. Each shot was aimed and deliberate. The Krelvan fell in waves. Those who got close found themselves facing humans who fought with brutal efficiency at close range. One Krelvan made it to Aaron's position. They grappled hand to hand. The alien was stronger, but Aaron was faster and more skilled. He broke the Krelvan's arm, disarmed him, and used his own weapon against his squad mates. Jake fought like the warrior who had earned his call sign. He moved through the chaos with lethal precision. Every movement had purpose. The medical bay on Station 7 was quiet except for the soft beeping of monitors. Jake lay on a bed while Dr. Helen Park examined his injuries. She was a small woman with gentle hands and a no-nonsense attitude. 3 broken ribs, she said, running her scanner over his chest. Multiple contusions. 2nd-degree burns on your left arm. Dehydration and malnutrition. Commander Morrison, you are a walking medical disaster. Jake managed a weak smile. I have had worse. I am sure you have, she said dryly. But that does not make this acceptable. You need rest. Real rest. Not just sitting in a cell waiting to escape. How long? Minimum 2 weeks before I clear you for active duty, and that is if you actually follow my orders and rest. Jake nodded. He was too tired to argue. The adrenaline that had carried him through the escape was gone now. He felt every injury, every bruise, every exhausted muscle. His body wanted to shut down. Dr. Park gave him something for the pain and left him to sleep. But sleep did not come easily. Every time Jake closed his eyes, he was back in that interrogation room. He heard Vexthor's voice, felt the cold. saw the faces of the Krelvin he had killed. He was not afraid of what he had done. He had made peace with necessary violence long ago, but there was always a cost, a weight that settled on your soul after every mission, every kill, every hard choice. Captain Linda Hayes came to visit later that evening. She stood in the doorway for a moment, just looking at him. Then she crossed the room and sat in the chair beside his bed. "I am glad you are back," she said quietly. "Thank you for sending the rescue team." Linda shook her head. The council did not authorize it. Aaron and his team went anyway. They could face court-martial for disobeying orders. Jake felt a surge of gratitude and worry. Will they? I do not think so. The political situation has changed. The Krelvin requested peace negotiations immediately after the rescue. Apparently they are terrified of starting a war with humanity. The council is calling Aaron's team heroes now instead of criminals. Good. They deserve recognition. They saved my life. Linda was quiet for a moment. Jake, you have been called to testify before the council. They want to hear about your captivity and what you learned about the Krelvin military. When? 3 days. Can you do it? He would do it if he had to crawl to the council chamber. Yes, Captain, I can do it. 3 days later, Jake stood before the Coalition High Council. He wore his dress uniform, pressed and clean. His face was still bruised, and one arm was in a light brace, but he stood straight and spoke clearly. Ambassador Selarin sat at the head of the council table. Her large, dark eyes studied him with what might have been concern or curiosity. The other council members represented species from across the galaxy. Some looked sympathetic, others looked uncomfortable. Commander Morrison, Selarin began, we are grateful for your safe return. Your sacrifice allowed the diplomatic convoy to escape unharmed. We would like to understand what happened during your captivity. Jake gave them a detailed report. He described the Krelvin interrogation techniques, their military structure, their ship designs, and their tactical doctrine. He spoke in clinical terms, keeping emotion out of it. This was intelligence debriefing, not therapy. One council member, a tall insectoid being named Zixtar, raised a claw. Commander, the reports indicate you killed 47 Krelvin soldiers during your initial defense and dozens more during the escape. Do you feel this level of violence was necessary? Jake met his multifaceted eyes without flinching. Yes. Every action I took was necessary to complete my mission and survive. I used minimum force required to achieve those objectives. Minimum force. Zixtar repeated skeptically. You killed nearly 100 enemy soldiers, correct? If I had used maximum force, the number would be significantly higher. I could have destroyed their armory while personnel were inside. I could have sabotaged life support systems. I chose not to. I targeted only military combatants who were actively trying to kill me or prevent my escape. Selarin leaned forward. Commander, help us understand. Your species joined the coalition seeking peace. Yet you are trained as a warrior. How do you reconcile this contradiction? Jake took a breath. With respect, Ambassador, there is no contradiction. Humanity wants peace. We want to explore, learn, and grow alongside other species. But we also understand that peace without the capacity to defend it is not peace. It is surrender waiting to happen. He gestured around the chamber. The coalition has maintained peace for 3 centuries by avoiding conflict. That is admirable, but it has also made you vulnerable. Species like the Krelvin see your pacifism as weakness. They exploit it. Several council members shifted uncomfortably. Selarin's expression was unreadable. So you believe violence is the answer? Zixtar said. No, Jake replied firmly. Violence is never the answer. But sometimes it is the question, and the answer is yes. There are beings in this galaxy who only understand strength, who see kindness as something to exploit. For peace to survive, someone must be willing to defend it. That is what soldiers do. We carry the burden of violence so others do not have to. The chamber was silent. Then Selarin spoke again, her voice softer. You speak of burden. Do you feel you are carrying a burden, Commander? Yes, Jake said honestly. Every soldier does. We train to kill, But we are not killers. We prepare for war, but we hope for peace. We see and do things that most people never should. That weight stays with you. But someone has to carry it. Better us than civilians who never chose this life. Another council member, an elderly humanoid with silver skin, raised her hand. Commander Morrison, what do you want from us? What should the coalition do? Jake looked around at the assembled representatives. I want you to be realistic about the galaxy you live in. Yes, seek peace. Yes, use diplomacy first, but also build defenses. Train soldiers, not to conquer or intimidate, but to protect. The Krelvin are negotiating now because they fear our military capability. Without that fear, they would simply take what they want. Is that not rule through fear? Sailorin asked. Is that not tyranny? No, Ambassador. Tyranny is when you use fear to control the innocent. This is deterrence. It means potential aggressors think twice before attacking because they know there will be consequences. That prevents war rather than causing it. The questioning continued for another hour. When it finally ended, Jake was exhausted. Captain Hayes met him outside the chamber. You did well in there, she said. Did I? I feel like I just told them their entire worldview is wrong. Maybe they need to hear that. Come on. Aaron is waiting with the rest of the team. They want to celebrate your return properly. That night, Jake sat in a small bar on Station 7 with his team. They laughed and told stories and drank together like they had done 100 times before. For a few hours, the weight lifted. He was just a man with his friends, not a warrior carrying impossible burdens. Aaron sat beside him nursing a beer. Hey, Jake, he said quietly. You doing okay? Really? Jake considered lying. But this was Aaron, his brother in everything but blood. Honestly? No. The interrogation was hard. Killing all those Krelvin was harder. I keep seeing their faces. Aaron nodded. I know. After missions, it is always like that. The faces stay with you. Does it get easier? No, but you learn to live with it. Remember why you do this job. Those diplomats made it home safe because of you. Those civilians are with their families right now because you bought them time to escape. The Krelvin who died made a choice to attack. You made a choice to protect. That matters. Jake raised his glass. To choices, and to the people who have to make the hard ones. Aaron clinked his glass against Jake's, and to brothers who come get you when those choices go wrong. Meanwhile, across the galaxy on the Krelvin homeworld, General Corthon met with the Empire's high command. He stood before them in full military dress, medals gleaming on his chest. You recommend we seek peace with the coalition, the Supreme Commander said, after losing one prisoner and some equipment. This is weakness, General. With respect, it is strategy, Corthon replied. We studied humanity for 6 days. We interrogated one of their elite soldiers. We engaged them in combat on our own flagship. The conclusion is unavoidable. Humanity has spent millennia perfecting the art of war while we practice ceremony. They are dangerous beyond anything we have encountered. One soldier killed 73 of our warriors, he continued. One team penetrated our flagship, destroyed our armory, and extracted their man with minimal casualties. If we go to war with humanity, they will teach us what war truly means, and we will lose. The Supreme Commander was silent for a long time. Then he nodded slowly. Very well, General. Propose terms for a non-aggression pact, but do so from a position of strength. We negotiate, but we do not grovel. Understood. And one more thing. We should request a meeting with their commander, the one they call Reaper. I want to understand what created such a warrior. Back on Station 7, Ambassador Solarin requested a private meeting with Jake. They sat in a quiet garden dome, surrounded by plants from a dozen different worlds. Commander Morrison, she began, I have spent my entire life advocating for peace. Nonviolence is central to my people's philosophy. But after hearing your testimony, I find myself questioning things I thought were absolute truths. Jake listened carefully. You are not a monster, she continued. You are thoughtful and restrained, yet you are also deadly. How is this possible? 6 months later, Jake stood in front of 40 recruits from 20 different species. They wore matching training uniforms and looked at him with a mixture of curiosity and nervousness. This was the first class of the Coalition Defense Initiative, and he was their chief instructor. "Welcome to basic combat training," Jake said, his voice carrying across the open field. "My name is Commander Morrison. You will address me as Commander or Sir. For the next 12 weeks, I will teach you how to defend yourselves, your ships, and your fellow Coalition citizens. This will not be easy. Some of you will quit. That is acceptable. Better to quit here than to fail when lives depend on you." He walked slowly down the line, making eye contact with each recruit. "You come from peaceful societies. You have been taught that violence is wrong. I am not here to change that belief. Violence is wrong. But sometimes wrong people force us to choose between our ideals and our survival. This training will prepare you for those moments." A young Velascan raised his hand hesitantly. "Commander, my people are telepathic. We feel the pain we inflict on others. How can we train to hurt people when we experience their suffering?" Jake nodded. "That is a valid concern. We will work with Velascan instructors to develop mental shielding techniques. But understand this. If you feel your enemy's pain, maybe that will make you more careful about when and how you use force. Maybe that empathy will make you better defenders than those who feel nothing. Your sensitivity is not weakness. It is a reminder of what we fight to protect." The training began. Jake pushed them hard but fairly. He taught them close combat techniques, weapon handling, tactical movement, and situational awareness. More importantly, he taught them when not to fight, how to de-escalate situations, how to use minimum necessary force. Aaron served as his second in command. Together, they built a training program that balanced human combat experience with Coalition values. They created warriors who could be fierce when needed but showed restraint as their default. 3 months into the program, Jake received a message that surprised him. General Corthon of the Krelvan Empire requested a formal meeting. The Coalition Council approved it as part of ongoing peace negotiations. They met in a neutral conference room on Station 7. Corthon arrived with minimal security, a gesture of respect. He was tall and imposing, his silver scales catching the light, but his eyes showed intelligence and something that might have been respect. "Commander Morrison," Corthon said, inclining his head. "Or should I say Reaper? I have wanted to meet you properly since you escaped my flagship." Jake stood and returned the gesture. "General, I hope you have repaired the damage." "We have, at considerable cost. But that cost taught us a valuable lesson." "What lesson is that?" "That humanity has not forgotten what it means to be warriors. The rest of the galaxy has been at peace so long that they have forgotten the true nature of conflict. But you remember. Your species has kept that knowledge alive even as you seek peace." Jake gestured for them to sit. "Knowledge is not the same as desire, General. Yes, we understand war, but that understanding makes us value peace even more. We know what war costs." Corthon settled into a chair designed for his larger frame. "I have studied your military history since our encounter. The wars your species fought were terrible, yet you survived them. More than survived. You learned from them. The Krelvan have had wars too, but they were formal affairs. Honored duels between fleets. We never experienced the total warfare that shaped humanity." "Be grateful for that," Jake said quietly. "Total war destroys everything it touches. It breaks societies and people. We carry scars from our history that will never fully heal, yet those scars made you strong. No, those scars made us careful. There is a difference. Strength without wisdom is just brutality. We learned that lesson the hard way." The Krelvan general was quiet for a moment. Then he leaned forward. "Commander, I came here to make a request. The Krelvan Empire wishes to join your training program. We want to learn from human combat doctrine. Not to conquer, but to better defend our own borders." Jake raised an eyebrow. "You want me to train Krelvan soldiers?" "Yes, our tactics are outdated. Predictable. You proved that during your escape. We need to adapt or we will be vulnerable to species more aggressive than ourselves. And you trust humanity to teach you how to fight better?" Corthon smiled, showing sharp teeth. "I trust that you understand the difference between capability and intent. You could have killed far more of my warriors during your escape. You chose not to. That restraint impressed me more than your combat skill. A warrior who knows when not to kill is more valuable than one who only knows how to kill." Jake considered this. The request would need Coalition approval. But the idea had merit. Training former enemies could build trust and understanding. It could turn potential adversaries into allies. "I will discuss it with my superiors," Jake said. "But General, understand this. If Krelvan soldiers train with us, they will learn our values along with our tactics. Honor through discipline, strength through restraint. Protection as the primary mission, not conquest. Those are lessons worth learning, Korthan replied. 2 weeks later, the first Krelvan recruits arrived at the training facility. They were proud warriors accustomed to formal military traditions. Jake broke down those traditions and built them back up with new foundations. Discipline over bravado, teamwork over individual glory, mission success over personal honor. It was hard work. The Krelvan resisted at first, but slowly they began to understand. They saw how human methods achieved results with fewer casualties. They learned that true strength meant protecting the weak, not dominating them. One evening, Jake sat in his office reviewing training reports when his communication console chimed. It was Captain Hayes calling from the Valiant commander, she said, her face serious on the screen. We have a situation. Intelligence has detected a new threat emerging from unexplored space. A species called the Vexli. They appear to be highly aggressive and are moving toward coalition territory. Jake felt his muscles tense. What do we know about them? Very little. They operate as a hive mind. They have attacked several outlying colonies and settlements. No survivors, no communication attempts. They simply consume everything in their path. The Coalition Council is requesting that you lead a reconnaissance mission. They want to understand what we are facing and how to defend against it. Jake stood up. When do we leave? As soon as you can assemble a team. And Jake, the Council is authorizing lethal force. They have learned from the Krelvan situation. Sometimes threats cannot be negotiated with. Understood. I will gather my team and prepare to depart within 48 hours. Jake called Aaron to his office. His friend arrived within minutes, already knowing from Jake's expression that something serious was happening. We have a new mission, Jake said. Reconnaissance against a hostile species. Could be dangerous, Aaron grinned. Is there any other kind? When do we leave? 2 days. I need you to select a team. Best people we have. This will not be like the Krelvan. This enemy does not negotiate or show mercy. Sounds familiar. I will have the team ready. Before the mission departed, Ambassador Solaran requested to see Jake. They met in the same garden dome where they had talked months earlier. I wanted to thank you, she said, for teaching us that peace and strength are not opposites. The coalition has changed because of you. We are building defenses without abandoning our ideals. Thank you, Ambassador. That means a lot. But the work is not done. This new threat will test everything we have built. I know, and that is why I am glad you will be leading the response. Commander Morrison, you have become more than a soldier to us. You are a symbol of what humanity offers the galaxy. The willingness to stand between darkness and those who cannot defend themselves. I am just doing my job, Jake said quietly. Perhaps. But your job has saved countless lives and changed how an entire civilization views conflict and defense. The name Reaper once seemed frightening to us. Now it represents hope. Come back safely, Commander. We will need you in the days ahead. 2 days later, the stealth ship Shadow Runner departed Station 7. Jake stood on the bridge with Aaron and their hand-picked team. They were heading into unknown danger, just like always. But this time, they carried the hopes of an entire coalition with them. As the ship accelerated toward the frontier, Jake looked at his reflection in the view screen. He saw a soldier who had endured captivity and torture, a warrior who had killed when necessary but shown mercy when possible, a teacher who had shared hard-won knowledge with former enemies and turned them into allies. The callsign Reaper had started as a description of his lethality, but it had become something more, a promise that death would come for those who threatened the innocent, a warning to predators that humanity remembered how to hunt. Aaron came to stand beside him. Thinking about the mission? Thinking about why we do this, Jake replied. All the training, all the sacrifice, all the weight we carry. Is it worth it? Aaron looked out at the stars. You know it is. Somewhere out there, people are going about their lives, raising families, creating art, learning and growing. They can do that because people like us stand watch. They can dream of peace because we are prepared for war. That is worth any burden, Jake nodded. You are right. As always. So what is the plan when we find these Vexli? Same as always, observe, assess, report back.